All right, y'all, back up in the basement. We are moving on to purposeful availment and worldwide Volkswagen. And this one is going to be short. No, not short. Just kidding. So we'll start with Hansen versus Denkel. And Hansen versus Denkel, we never read the case in class. We just kind of got the main holding from it. And so to highlight from it, um, Hansel and Denkel clarified the purposeful availment test. And this, when you think of purposeful availment, it's specifically the deliberate activity, right? Did a party know that they were going to get some kind of benefit or protection from a foreign state, right? So for instance, if I am selling sneakers and I'm looking at what's the state? Michigan. I'm looking at Michigan over yonder, and I go, I'm gonna advertise over there. I'm going to send my salespeople over there. I'm gonna target my advertisements online to people with Michigan area code zip codes, then I am very deliberate in me trying to get business and law protections and benefits from Michigan. And so that would be a clear example of my company, the sneaker company, purposely purposefully availing myself to Michigan. Okay. And the significance of this one is that it clarifies international shoe. And so if you kind of like think a shoe and the sufficient minimum contacts test, well, I mean, there still leaves a lot of room for questions, right? Like minimum contacts by who? Is it minimal contacts by like what is minimum? What if it's by accident, right? Maybe it's minimum contacts from people I had no intention of associating with my company, right? And so purposeful avail, this one we use a lot. The next case to kind of showcase, we kind of showcase when shoe would apply, and we're going to go to a case where shoe does not apply to kind of carve out the guardrails and the definition of how international shoe may be applied to different fact patterns. And this case is a big one because if you tweak the facts a little bit, you get really different outcomes, which with any case. But I think this one's a good one to kind of play with jurisdiction a little bit if you kind of change what the facts are. And I'll kind of showcase that as we go through. So the big takeaway from worldwide Volkswagen in Wutzen is that unilateral activity is claimed by P. Claimed by P cannot alone be sufficient to establish specific personal jurisdiction. Unilateral activity being one party doing something somewhere else with like that's not really any knowledge or benefit to the other party, I believe. And so the facts of this case are that defendant Woodson, bought an Audi car. That's car. That's not care. Audi car from Seaway Volkswagen in New York in 1997. Okay. So they bought Audi, right? That's not a cheap car. Just putting that out there. They then decided to move to Arizona. Okay. During their drive to move to Arizona, another car hit them in the back and the car caught on fire, which badly burned, I believe, the wife and their two children. Okay. And so like you can kind of imagine how upset they'd be if simply a car hit them in the back, which happens all the time, and a fire breaks out and they sued on products liability for bad placement of the fuel tank. I mean, it makes sense. I'd be upset. And so D sued the parties in Oklahoma because that's where the accident happened. And so they sued the manufacturer, they sued Audi itself, and Audi's in Germany, so it's a foreign company, foreign in the sense of out of the United States. They sued worldwide Volkswagen, and that's the big one in, like, they are US one, I believe. Yes, they are, because the facts show themselves in a second. In Seaway, which is the car dealership that they had bought the Audi from when they were in New York. Worldwide Volkswagen is incorporated in New York. And so they have availed themselves to New York at least. And Worldwide and Seaway don't do any business in Oklahoma at all. So this is a key fact, actually, in which they don't actually have advertisements over there. They don't really have Audi dealerships. They don't really ship any of their cars there. The only way cars kind of get there is if they bought it somewhere else and drove it into Oklahoma, which is a key fact that we'll play with later. And so the question is it constitutional? Because this was decided by the Supreme Court to exercise specific personal jurisdiction over non-resident retailer when the only contact is a car that was sold in New York and was injured in Oklahoma. Okay. And so I didn't write this holding because kind of like thinking about it, we have international shoe minimum contacts. And so do they benefit from the laws and the protections of a foreign state? Right? Do they purposefully avail themselves to Oklahoma's benefits, right? And I think from the facts, I don't think it's that hard to kind of come to the conclusion that it doesn't really apply, and that's what the court said too. And so the holding here is that Oklahoma cannot have SPJ because one, they have to purposefully avail themselves to the state, right? And the key fact here is that, like, they don't do business over there. They don't try to get customers over there. They don't have any companies or dealerships over there. And so the car being in Oklahoma is purely incidental. And two is that, yes, foreseeability is a factor. Okay. And so in other cases, if a company sells something and can foresee it being in another state, you have a different, you could run a different analysis and may end up there. But it's not an element. So just because you may foresee it being in Oklahoma, it doesn't mean that you can exercise SPJ, or specific personal jurisdiction. And so that is a big deal in this case, okay? There's also the dissent. I'm not actually going to go into the dissent because when we think of worldwide Volkswagen is that, I don't know, we don't really talk about the dissent, TBH. Also, so the fact that I want to point out is that, right, if we change this fact to worldwide, like putting advertisements there, having car dealerships over there, selling the specific model car in which they sold in New York, in Oklahoma as well, you may have a very different outcome. And we actually see that later, and I think, like, this case called Ford Motors, right? But worldwide, Mr. 305, Mr. Worldwide.